LSU yesterday
let's get into it.
self-sanctioned their bowl bid for this season, which if you've been watching Whiskey and Wine, we've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. I thought that this made a ton of sense. We may have even said it on the air a couple of times. When I saw how bad first LSU was going to be this season, I believe this was after the Missouri game, I started saying publicly, get out of the bowl. Get rid of the bowl. As many games as you can cut from this schedule, release them. Get out of them. Because I think they do themselves more harm than they do good every time they step out onto the field because they're that bad and disengaged here in 2020, and playing a bowl game, to me, serves LSU zero benefit. No benefit.
You think no benefit? I don't think.
What are you going to try to sell me on the practices? Because they're going to play a game.
Absolutely.
They're going to play a game on December 19th.
Yeah,
which is going to be 2 weeks later than the regular season would have ended anyway.
Yeah,
they're going to get those. They're going to get more and extra practices for a lead up to a bowl that may pair you against a in-state school. Somebody maybe even like Lafayette, maybe like a Tulane.
Hell yeah,
that you could get beat.
I mean, you ain't losing Tulane, but UL. I think UL would be.
UL would be. UL would. I think we
UL
saw last week they would be a 7-point favorite on a neutral field.
Is that who said that?
I think it was Pro Football, one of those PFFs that were labeling. I mean, this is talking about LSU losing players. They're not going to be checked. If they're not checked in against Alabama, they're not going to be checked in a bowl game.
Well, I mean, I think they were actually checked in against Alabama. I don't think they're just not nearly as good, right? Look, I'm not saying they win the bowl game. I'm just saying I do, from a fan's perspective, yes, I have no need of watching them lose to UL or anything like that, but I do believe the lines that I was selling last week, that I do think there's value in these young players getting their ass kicked like this. I think it drives home how much work you have to do, the level that you're trying to attain to, how far away. You might have shown up at LSU thinking, oh, it's championship, we're going to roll the ball out there, we're going to win no matter what. Like, no, I think there's something to be said. Whatever, anybody who's gotten their ass kicked in their life at one point or another, was that not a learning lesson for you?
Sure.
A lot of the times it is. You come out of it better on the other side. And, yeah, I know. I think there is value to the bowl practices. Now, I also definitely understand that, the jokes in this self-imposed ban are just, they write themselves, right? You can't lose if you don't play in a bowl. Like, it doesn't feel, certainly on the surface, it doesn't feel like much of a sacrifice for LSU to be like, you know what, guys? Self-imposed penalty, we're going to sit this one out. Yeah. It's like, yeah, no, you actually do have a lot of motivation to sit this one out. I just think for the team itself and the players, you're losing a bit of value. But you're right. I don't want to belabor this point because I don't think it's like a ton of value.
Yeah, I think that this makes too much sense for LSU in 2020. Get the hell out of football season. Figure out what the future is going to look like. Because, like we said, and like we've been talking about, another surface-level example that you don't have to try and sift to find through LSU football of some of the dysfunction that is happening right now in and around the program. When you just look at the surface level of the program. Remember, we've been talking about this now for a couple of days where you don't need inside information. You don't need access to the LSU football program. You don't need to know people on the inside giving you information that are telling you, yeah, things are kind of crazy right now. Just Google LSU football right now and look at the top 5 items you get back in return, whether it's Arik Gilbert opting out, Terrace Marshall opting out. It's self-sanctions of the bowl season. It's the play on the field. It's the off-the-field stuff going on with the head coach. It's everything in around LSU football that all you have to do is simply type in a Google search for LSU football, and the feedback gives you that it's dysfunctional, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I say those, what would it be regularly, 15 bowl practices?
I think it's somewhere around there, yeah. I don't know for the big ones, at least, right? I don't know what happens if you play in like an earlier one.
Right. I mean, so if the season ends on December 19th and you play on December 28th, that's what I'm saying. Tap out.
Then you would lose.
Get the hell out of there.
Then you're really gaining nothing. I do agree with you there. That's just another normal game week, essentially. And Emil does raise a good point in the chat that, a lot of these coaches may not be here next year in terms of some of the assistants. So
also from that standpoint, if you're going to make coaching changes, this gives you the ability to do that 2 weeks earlier than you were going to do it prior if you're not playing in the bowl. I mean, all that stuff, they need to start pointing and looking towards next year. I know that they can't do it this week because they play Florida on Saturday. They potentially play Ole Miss next weekend. But everything, all energy and efforts, in my opinion, should be directed at National Signing Day, less than a week away now.
Yeah, it has to be.
Now next Thursday, or is it next Wednesday or is it next Thursday?
Next Wednesday.
Yeah, it's next Wednesday. So it's less than a week away here. I mean, all of the attention and effort, in my opinion, should be directed towards that date and getting out of the 2020 football season and start looking ahead. What's the coaching staff going to look like? What's the roster going to look like? What's going to be the mentality? And what's going to be the mission statement of the LSU football program moving forward? I think that they're at that level where it's almost a total rehaul of what you're going to be and who you are moving forward. I mean, I think there's so many questions around what's going on. I mean, I'm listening to some of the national stuff just driving around yesterday. We're back on sales calls and getting out and seeing a lot of people out on the streets and listening to shows all over the country. I mean, LSU is a laughing stock. I mean, people are pointing and laughing at LSU to a degree of it can't be this bad, right? When you're sitting down here in the belly of the beast, and I'm thinking, hell, I don't even know if the worst has come out.
Yeah. I mean, now we're getting reports of the meeting during the social justice march where maybe that meeting was not as productive as you were led to believe. So when the players skipped practice to go march, Coach O didn't know about it. Then they have a meeting afterwards where he told them, the meeting went well. The two sides kind of came together. They found common ground. Brooks Sabine in the Advocate reporting that is maybe not the case. And so much of what you're talking about, Jordy, of kind of refining those principles, right? Be it like one team, one heartbeat, the LSU standard performance, these kind of principles upon which the championship teams were built. So much of whether or not you're going to be able to refine those, resell those, and, reapply those principles. Again, I know I keep going back to this, Jordy, but are they willing to be fully honest with themselves? And I think that meeting that is now starting to be learned about is a perfect example because it sounds like both sides got pretty upset with each other. Both sides probably standing by their points, and are Ogeron and the coaches really willing to admit how they erred in that entire saga, what they did wrong, and why the team would come out of that feeling like they were not being supported? Or when you think back on that, do you just blame the players? Or there's a lot of this going around in the summer. Do you just sit there and blame Ryan Clark? Because the bottom line, if you just sit there and you blame other people for your problems will never get fixed. And so you're right. It is time for complete and total kind of hit the reset button time. But I have questions when you look at the lessons that they have or have not learned this year. I have questions if they'll be able to engage in that sort of self-evaluation and be fully honest with what those answers are.
I mean, he was pissed at me on Tuesday morning, and he was pissed that I asked that question going out of the interview about the one team, one heartbeat, if that is even a mantra anymore. And I was curious. Like, I was sincerely curious on whether or not I had a friend of mine text me that either that morning or the night before asking, do they say one team, one heartbeat anymore? And it kind of got me thinking, I haven't heard him say that in a long time publicly.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking about mantras and mission statements and things that you every day, your company believes in, that has, when they show up, when your people show up, they know that this is where we're all pulling. We're all pulling into the same direction. We're pulling towards this. And that was always kind of the call for LSU football. And you haven't heard that. You haven't heard that publicly. So when I asked it, I was curious on whether or not that was even being spoke about in the halls. You would hear tales of last season of him just walking throughout the football facility beating a drum. He'd just start beating a drum in the middle of the day, and everybody would kind of come out of their office, and it would be a one team, one heartbeat type chant where everybody was pulling in one direction. That's the type of stuff you don't see it, you don't hear it. And when those things vanish, when it felt like that was such a
that type of stuff that doesn't play either if the relationship's broken down.
Sure, absolutely. I think that's another one of those examples that I've been talking about. You don't have to know anybody.
It's awesome if you like the guy. It's comical if you don't.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's examples that are right there on the surface. You know, I mean, it's stuff that you've heard before, that you've seen before, and that's non-existent right now during in what seems like very dysfunctional times for not only the LSU football program. Let me say this: it feels like that the overall athletic program is in disarray, right? I mean, it feels like everything that comes out of there, you're a little leery to trust it. You don't know what the actual story is, and that is a bad place to be when you start losing the trust of your consumers and the people covering the program, in the sense of just what's going on.
Something I want to explore a bit later in the show, because we want to get the chef here, is that it's clear to me that LSU was not ready to handle the problems that come with success. I think a lot of times in life we think that if we only reach our ultimate goal, then all of our problems will go away, right? You know, we'll be in the utopia that you've always wanted to. Everything will be copacetic, everything will be perfect. But I think what you find is that when you reach that goal, problems don't go away. You just get a new set of problems. And LSU was not ready to engage or ready to understand how to navigate those issues. And here you sit. So we'll explore that more later.
We'll talk to Will Wade an hour from now. Your food questions next.
Hey, hope you enjoyed that video. Remember to keep it locked right here on Off the Bench for all the LSU coverage that you want. But what if you want to talk New Orleans Saints as they race for the 1 seed? Check out our new channel, Off the Bench Overtime. Click the link, see what you think, and we'll see you around.